Hey, everybody. Jay Young here, back with the Jay Young Show. Thanks for being here today. I'm really excited about number one, let's bring our co-host in. Jordan, come on in. Jordan Soto, my exciting and beautiful co-host. Jordan, how are you doing today? What's going on in Houston, Texas?
I'm excited that you used another verb today. That was exciting.
There you go.
You said you were going to try and do that. I know you always mean so well whenever you say that, but Houston's interesting right now, trying to figure out if it wants to be hot or cold, summer or winter. It can't really decide.
Yeah, well, that's this time of year. I know it just comes up and down. You never know when you walk out. But Michelle, this morning we were getting ready and bustling. We had our corporate Christmas party last night, and so we're kind of getting out and trying to figure out. She goes, "Is it freezing outside today or not?" I go, "I don't. Normally you would know. No matter where you live, you know it's cold or not, but not in Texas. You never know in Texas, so it's great.
You never know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we have a guest in the studio today, Cole Green. Cole, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here today. Cole is with MCG Drilling. I guess the G has something to do with your name.
Absolutely.
Is a first generation, second generation?
Second generation Mitch Coleman Green.
There you go.
Is my dad's name. I'm actually a junior, so I carry that on.
There you go. Sound like a country western singer.
Yeah.
Cole Green. Don't you think? I like that. Anyway, he has a Texas company with roots that stretch all the way back to the 70s. He's been hands-on his entire career building and managing rigs across Texas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Kentucky. Wow. For the family's gone in all these different places, or did you work with other companies?
In one way or another, my dad has drilled in all of those places.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you followed him. You didn't work for other companies?
No, we were subcontractor. We had the rig. We were digging for operators, so he wasn't, an operator, but
I got you.
In the majority of that those situations.
Yeah. We had a great talk before, and I hope I don't forget all those questions that I asked before, because you get to talking to somebody and they're trying to get the mics ready and all these things. And I'm like asking questions. Man, what a fascinating guy here. So, hey, but anyway, he was on. I'm sorry, Jordan, you want to go ahead?
Well, I was going to say what you were about to say. Super exciting. You were on season 2 of Landman. What was that like?
Well, just to say the least, it was an adventure. It was interesting to work for these people. They definitely know how to put on a show. I think they were striving season 2 to make everything appear more realistic and kind of for the industry standard of oil show, more out in the field, more on the rig, more of the roughnecks. And if you've seen it, as you would know, kind of Cooper's story is what we follow. Cooper goes out on his own, gets an investor, kind of to be named later, and goes and he drills some wells, unexpectedly vertical wells that everybody kind of assumed was in a field that's played out, and he hits his first 6. So as we know in this industry, that typically wouldn't happen with vertical well.
It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen by dinner.
No, and
it would. His girlfriend gets mad at him, and all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, well, I'm sorry I didn't answer my phone for 3 hours, but we hit them all." And I'm like, "Dude, you've been gone for what, a day, and you hit all 6 wells in a row? That's pretty darn good, man. You don't drill wells that fast."
Yeah.
But anyway, no. But his rig, the family rig, was on the Landman. I mean, I looked at it, I go, MCG Drilling. I go, yeah, I think I know that company. And it seems to know that we've probably used you guys before, years ago, or and I think we have. And I recognize that. So congratulations. How did you get that rig? I mean, how did you get that deal?
Oh, I really appreciate it. It came kind of, they put out a casting call last year for season 1 for Roughnecks, and they were it was a third-party team that was putting together actors and actresses to come on the show. And so I cold called and sent some videos and some footage of our guys and what it really is like. They kind of blew me off, never got back to me. Finally, they said that they're not doing any drilling in season 1, but they potentially could in season 2, if there is a season 2. And then kind of the rest is history. There's a big hit. Everybody loved the show. Or like it or love it. They watched it, and now I think there's just an announcement to be a season 3. So
wow, unbelievable! It's great. I love the show. I think it's great. I have not watched the episode Sunday night yet, since our Christmas party was last night. But It comes on every Sunday morning at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. Central Time, and it's called Landman. Billy Bob Thornton. Did you get to smoke cigarettes with Billy Bob or anything?
I got to watch him smoke a few. Yes,
Did
sir.
you really? You got what? He loves that. He said he smokes like a Buick, like an old Buick. And but I love those. I love the show, and I love the people, and of course that's the oil business, and that's how I grew up. It brings back a lot of old memories. So very, very, very thankful for that, and pretty good. But how'd you guys get in the? Because this is a big business. I mean, you have a lot of capital tied up in rigs and owning rigs or whatever. I mean, those rigs are really, really expensive. Did your dad start the business himself, or did he have a partner? How'd you guys get started?
He did. He had a business with a partner. I guess I'll go back. Before him was my grandfather, kind of like in your situation. My grandfather was an operator of some small leases, pumped them himself, had a little shallow sputter rig. They would drill.
Is this in Archer City?
This is in Archer City. There's kind of a prolific oil field around there, back in the day. And so there was a lot of shallow wells drilled. And then my dad got in it. My dad had a partner, and they decided to build one rig at a time and deployed them. Barnett Shell kind of made them. He had some double jackknife, triple jackknife Kelly rigs with duplex pumps, old school, just drilling Barnett Shell vertical wells. They did end up doing some horizontals, but this was kind of the beginning of that. And then his partner died in an accident, and he kind of went out on his own, started over, and he just had a pretty good customer base, small independent local guys that were still doing this vertical drilling. And I think it kind of had its heyday in 2014. We had 6 rigs running, never another poor day. And then it seemed like after that, it really kind of declined. You don't see any vertical wells being drilled anymore, and there's very few people who do them. So we're just trying to be a part of that. I think that.
Now, what are the odds, or what are the odds? What are the percentages of horizontal rigs? A rig that goes down 6, 8, 10. We do in our last 2 wells, they went down 10,800 feet vertical, and then you go horizontal. 6,000 or 8,000 feet, whatever. And that takes a lot more horsepower. You have to have a top drive on top of the rig that helps, spin it. And it takes a lot more horsepower. And not all rigs can just, you don't call and just say, hey, one size fits all type deal. You got to have different size rigs and horsepower. And normally, 1,000 horsepower or something, 1,500, something is a big rig. And so you guys you have a rig that could do that, but you're not specialized in that yet, or you don't have the equipment, or is there a look? So right now you still have 6 rigs, and all the 6 rigs, are they all just plain? Are they all the same size, or?
That's a good question. They're all mechanical Kelly rigs, so I would call them old school. Okay. And a lot of what we
that's
run
where the chain, you have to do the chain.
You throw the chain just like on the show, and we got duplex fingers. People lose fingers all the time. It's kind of a insurance guy's nightmare. But with that said, we've got a lot of veteran guys, a lot of guys that have been around it forever. Our average employee has probably been with us 10, 11 years. So these guys know how to do that. And I think that's kind of the number one thing on those old rigs. But yes, to answer your question, I would say 80 to 85% of the rigs out in the United States today are digging horizontally. Yeah. And there's not very many people that are doing what we do, and there's still potential for some exploration. There's a lot of people who have leases that were drilled shallow, and then they, so-and-so died or so-and-so inherited it, and now all these deeper opportunities are available for vertical exploration. And then, as you have seen and what you do, the Barnett Shell, just when it started off, there became a brand new place to drill. And then the same thing out in the Permian Basin. It seemed like when those guys decided they wanted to go full blow out there, it really opened up deeper drilling for more intense and I'd say better built rigs. But we still drill for these guys that have been in it forever, multi-generation oil companies that have places to drill. And then there are a few people still exploring vertically, and the ones that have, I'll reference, we talked about before the show, NBX Energy out of Wichita Falls, Jim Browning. These guys hit a neutron field at 5,200 feet, and it's been incredible. So 65 vertical wells, you just don't hear about it. And we drilled some dry holes to find it, and we've drilled some dry holes on the edge of it, but the majority of them have hit. And so that kind of in my wheelhouse has been the largest discovery or field that I've been a part of. And I would say probably anyone involved in that project.
So you guys have a rig working now that just drills?
It has been, yeah. Since 2017 is when we I think put the first well online, and until now, I think they finally unitized it and they're going to put a water flood in. But we were able to drill 65 or 70 wells.
Wow,
yeah,
8 years. That's how many wells a year?
I guess 8 a year, roughly. And I think it is kind of gotten towards the end of it, but what I'm getting at is there's still some opportunity there, and it's not going to be the opportunity to go out and drill an $8 or $10 million well and produce 1,000 barrels of oil a day. But these wells, I think, were probably costing $600-700 to drill, and they'd come in 100 barrels a day. So economically, it's kind of how you and John had talked about on that previous podcast I listened to. There is kind of a niche market for this stuff. It's just not near as across the board blanket, and it's really difficult to raise capital and get investors return because of the risk. Whereas what you're doing is more, you mediate that the best you can. And I think discovering a horizontal field and drilling horizontally is an assembly line approach that, I would say almost but guarantees a return. Yeah. Where we're just wildcatting.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, it's kind of like when in Landman, I guess. I mean, Cooper gets out there and says, "Oh yeah, well, I just thought since there was oil up here on the top in the first top couple of layers that if I just drill down further, I'll hit oil." And I mean, there's nothing closer to the truth. I mean, it's like that's not a geologist. And when you talk about it, and he said we had a few dry holes before, and then all of a sudden MBX,
yes.
MBX then drilled, found a field and then drilled 60 wells. How does it know where to drill? Nobody knows because it's kind of dark down there at 5,000 or 6,000 feet. You got to drill down there to see what's going on. So when you do drill, you're fine when you're drilling and hitting, but then all of a sudden it's like it runs out because there's just pockets. Maybe a pocket full here. It's like the ranch, the boys ranch that we were talking about earlier. There's a Bivens ranch real close to us, and we've talked about doing some vertical wells on the west part of our 60,000 acres we have out there, because there is formations that are a lot better to develop vertically rather than horizontally. Mm-hmm. But horizontals are they're expensive. It's $20,000 a day or $25,000 a day for a rig, and man, they just keep you busy, and it's a lot of money. So that's one thing. I don't know if you guys have thought about it or thought about. Yeah, 6. Are all the rigs running right now?
So we've got 3 of the rigs running. One was being filmed on Landman. I've got a triple Kelly rig, jackknife. It's just got done with one for Browning Oil. And then I've got a double that's moving on X-Tex Oil and Gas. He's a consultant, got a consulting firm, and he's out drilling vertical wells. But the thing is the rigs that I have are not capable of doing that deeper stuff. They were probably maxed out at the Barnett Shale, if you would call that, a category of rig. But this Permian Basin stuff, these guys are, like you say, it's incredibly expensive, and the rigs are really expensive to build, really expensive to operate. You make a lot of oil. There's a lot of everything, really. Yeah. And so a lot of water, big money. Yeah, big money. And you can,
but you can hit a lot of money. You can
make a lot of money. Yeah. You can prove up fields and sell them, like that's kind of a theory a lot of guys go with. But what we do and what we could do, and kind of getting back to your point, is in that capacity is set surface, set intermediate for people with our littler rig, or drill these disposals. As in the horizontal game, you better have a disposal. And I feel like that's kind of the permit that's been the toughest to get in the state of Texas is those disposal permits. But once you get 8 or 10 horizontal wells going, you're probably gonna have a place to go with the water. So our rig, our outfit would be more tailored to doing a job like that on a footage basis and not a day work basis, where we take the risk and we control the well, and you aren't shelling out that kind of money for a big rig on a disposal.
Yeah. Wow. I know. When we're drilling through the Barnett Shale back, drilling vertical wells in the 90s, and we were drilling through it, and there's this formation down there in our mud logger, which is somebody on location while you're drilling the well. We were drilling through it, and it was like 200 feet thick, and it was gassy the whole way through it. And I remember asking a guy, "Man, what is this stone? This stone looks good. Why don't we perforate it?" And he said, "Oh man, it's just too tight. You're not going to get anything out of it." Mm-hmm. And so we never did complete it, but we were drilling right through it, drilling some wells out in Parker County. And then all of a sudden they started drilling horizontal through it, or drilling horizontal, and then you could frack it, and it just made all the difference in the world out there with that. So that's one thing I remember about that. But then we're on the side, me and Eric Castillo, and Eric worked for me at the time, and we're out there, and he said, Jay, you need to start your own company. You need a drilling company. We need to buy us we need to get us a drilling rig, you know. And I said, man, what do you mean by that? And he goes, we need to have our own drilling company right here along the side of this drilling rig. We can put King Drilling Company. And I'm like, man, that sounds like a pretty good deal, but I don't know. That's a lot of money and hands, you know. And so there's because it's hard to find good hands.
It's hard to find good hands,
as you know, and it's also really expensive. And you need to have somebody. I mean, I can't live in Dallas, Texas, and have a yard, you know, in Archer City or something.
Right.
And there were some guys up there that. But anyway, so we decided not to do it. But that's where I took the name. He started King Drilling, or he had the name King Drilling, and I decided to not get in the drilling business, but get in the operating business, which is what we do, and have King Operating Corporation. So that's kind of how the name started. Was a drilling company, and but I loved it, and I thought it was really, really neat. What else?
Well, seeing like how the industry has changed, not just over the last decade, but over the last 2 decades. I mean, we're seeing such rapid changes. What, in your perspective, has been the most impactful shift in the industry that has impacted your operational capacity?
Well, operationally, I'd say the coolest thing that has developed, and it's probably come 20 years ago since its inception, is Pason. And I know Jay's referenced that, but to be able to see where the bit is, how much weight's on it, what your gas shows are, how much fluid you're pumping down hole, if you're
on your phone,
you know, on your phone. Yeah, I was on a cruise ship.
Just go, hey, this is. So I looked. We're not drilling right now, but if we were drilling, I could literally see everything right here.
It's right there. That's pretty, I would say, handy. Other than that, you know, just having the technology. I know I'm referencing one of Jay's earlier podcasts, but people used to handwrite the reports, call it into the office. The office would, I don't know how they would even do it, get it out to the investors in some capacity. But now we have so much data and reports and the communication. You know, a lot of these wells were drilled out in the middle of nowhere where it would be a 45-minute drive just to the location once you hit the end of the blacktop. And now it's like, you know, data is just so easy to send and available right now. So that would be the foundation of all the technology. I know downhole tools have gotten incredible where they can actually run a gamma ray or run survey.
Joysticks too.
Yeah, joystick drilling. You know,
man, you
the
got
ability.
Literally, people are able to run a rig and drill it well and steer it with a
joystick. And now they can do it from a remote location. It's called remote. These guys can do these remote directional drilling services where, you know, a lot of the cost, as you know, is these 2 guys or 3 that you have to have out on location steering the rig, called directional drillers. Totally an additional third-party cost is on top of the drilling rig. And the directional drillers and the drilling rig don't always get along. Well, now there's just these guys that can do this remotely. So, you know, while you were paying maybe $10,000, $15,000 a day for these directional drilling services, now you have the tools, and if you have a little know-how in-house, you can have your own guys, you know, steer these wells. So that would be another thing that has just been a mind-blowing technology. You know, not only directional drilling in general, but directional drilling remotely from the couch is pretty impressive.
Well, I tell you, horizontal drilling, especially in the Permian Basin, you know, because the Permian Basin is producing 1 million barrels of oil 15 years ago. 1 million barrels of oil, the whole Permian Basin. I'm talking about New Mexico, the Central Platform. I mean, the whole deal, 1 million barrels. And all of a sudden they figure out how to go horizontal in these shells, which one of our guys asked me about that. We had a lease up there on the Bobby Holt. Bobby Holt had a ranch, or he probably still does up there, and we got a hold of the Holt Ranch lease up there in late 90s, beginning of 2000 or something, and I was like, man, we're going to drill vertical wells, and our geologist at the time, president of the company, Joe Simo, he said, let's go horizontal, Jay. There's nothing like going horizontal. And I said, man, we don't go horizontal in the Wolf Camp. you just don't do that, because it's too strainy, and it's like it's not thick, and it's not like the Canyon Lime or something. It's just a different formation, and so nobody was doing it at the time. But since then, they have, and they've killed it. And so the Permian Basin is making 6 million barrels a day now, 6 instead of 1, which is 5 million more barrels a day. 5 million. Multiply that times 60 times 30 days, and you can see how much more money that means, especially for the state of Texas. And for taxes.
Yes.
Multiply times 4.5%. That's why we don't pay state income tax.
There it is. They're paid out of the ground right there.
Not including Eagle Ford and other places.
One of the things that you mentioned was personalities and kind of how everything is operating now. It kind of takes out the clashing of personalities. When you were on Landman, obviously there's some dramatization between parties there. Is that true to what you see on site or have seen on site? Is the drama in real life that of Landman on TV?
I'll tell you what, I feel like they did a pretty good job. I think the rig hands that are running the rig, actually the ones on the floor operating the rig, are my guys. They have one of their guys out there with Cooper. He's the guy in the doghouse with longer hair that tells him to come look at the gas kicks and all that stuff. And if you were to get in the nitty gritty, you could dissect it. And the guys that really, really know drilling and oil and gas could make comments about the pressure spike is on this valve on the standpipe, which it wouldn't happen that way, but it makes really good TV. Yeah. And I feel like the general idea, I mean, besides hitting 6 vertical wells in a row, all making 500 barrels a day, is there. It can happen. You can have life-changing revenue, and you can discover oil and it be pretty impactful. So, and I think that working out there, they do a really good job, and they really try hard to show what it's really like. And I feel like I appreciate them doing that. I know that, at the end of the day, Taylor Sheridan writes a script, and it is the Bible. They have to stick to the script. So they do the most they can to do that, but they do listen to our influence. If they come and ask me about, pressures and production and numbers and stuff like that, and I give them an answer, they usually go with it. I think it's kind of one of those things that they want it to be reasonable. So there's a lot of moving parts when you're out there working for them. I've never seen so many people on a location, hundreds, and it's pretty intense. But at the end of the day, I feel like they used our guys in a capacity that they could do well. They did a really good job of shooting the rig, and it worked out.
Here's the guy. If you go to my TikTok, I put a video on there Saturday night. We were at A&M, and I was playing around, and I found this Landman, and I put this on my TikTok, and this is the rig that he's talking about. Mm-hmm. So the rig that's in the show right here, the rig that's on that they're on is the rig is Cole's rig right there. There you go. And which is drilling the well, and they hit their first well. I think it's the first well, and he said, "Look over there." He said, "There's the second one," and all that stuff. But anyway, just to let you know, I mean, that's a real rig. It's drilling a real well. I don't know where you drilling that well. Where is it?
So that well is.
I know you're not drilling, but you're
right. It is it is staged in the Permian, and it's obviously a lease that Cooper found that, as you said, was the deeper stuff was untapped. It was probably an old man that had a shallow lease, and I don't know the exact storyline. The filming took place south of Weatherford, between Weatherford and Crescent on the Moncrief Ranch. Okay. So they have their headquarters in Fort Worth. I know Taylor's building like some massive facility, and they did a lot of the stuff in downtown Fort Worth because that's where the oil company was based out of. And then the actual rig, we rigged up about an hour outside of Fort Worth, between Weatherford and Crescent. And so they dug us a little hole. They dug us like an 80 or 90, 100-foot hole so we could go up and down, and then they let us rig all our equipment up so it would function. And so we were able to simulate drilling. I will say an interesting thing was on the blowout scene. If you've seen it, or if anyone's seen it, that was the scene that started episode 2, very beginning. It didn't get much time, but that was probably the most expensive and most time-consuming thing we filmed. And it's funny that you get there and you wonder how big of a part that is, and it was just really quick. But that scene was probably the most trickery we had to do. They put a big centrifugal pump under our sub and then tied in and pumped this fluid, which looked exactly like oil to me. It wasn't, back up and manufactured that blowout, which was pretty impressive, honestly, to see them do it. We had to go out and do it 2 or 3 times before we actually filmed it. And I will say that is probably the coolest thing that we were part of on the show, was that one scene. And I feel like even though Cooper, what he did to shut it down wasn't, technically exactly how you go about it, it was one of those things that made really good TV.
Wow.
And so that, that well, I think is kind of defines him and where his career is headed, if he can get along with the guy that got him the money. So.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting to find out.
Will be very interesting to find out. Yes,
man, I tell you, and we haven't watched episode 3 yet, but I do know a few things. I know that he and Kimmy have lunch or something, and I've heard a few things, but I'll watch it tonight with Michelle. But anyway, so at one point, episode 2, a lot of guys die or something. A lot of guys are falling over because of the H2S.
That's right.
So tell us about that. Have you ever run into that? I don't think there's a problem out here as much as there is in East Texas, but
no, I think it's kind of, a silent killer. They say once you smell it, you're dead. And so that's what those monitors, those guys, we take that very seriously. And so it's one of those things that you assume and hope and pray that it's never going to happen, but everyone has to stay certified. And a lot of the times nowadays, the operators do a really good job of stepping in. The operators are going to send someone out there, a third party, to make sure everyone's certified, make sure the monitors are working, and then have some sort of a station downwind where you could go, I guess, probably get on oxygen or give them some medicine, and then kind of everybody stays pretty paranoid about that. But that scene, I think, did a really good job of scaring us in a way. I mean, that is apparently how it can go down. And I know a lot of the real roughnecks, the veteran guys that have been out there forever, they're pretty fearful of that. I mean, it's not something to mess around with. So the monitors, there's a monitor on the rig floor. There's a monitor down by the pits where the mud system is. It sets off an alarm on both places. And then each person individually is supposed to be wearing a H2S monitor, which if you watch the show, it starts beeping, and that's what sets off the guys to run back upwind to the well. But the guy hanging out on that tank battery, he kind of got screwed over a little bit. I mean,
he did.
That wind changed, and I guess that gas is heavy gas, so it would stay low to the ground. But the way it changed, it picked up and got him, and so we'll see. Hopefully, he ends up being okay.
Yeah.
So.
You think the devil put that H2S down there somewhere? So they
I think so, yeah. Or I don't.
Have you ever had a problem with it?
No, we have had it, and I'll tell you what a lot of the problem is with it. Typically, is our drill pipe. It corrodes pipe, and it's really strong. And so, like for example, if you run a string of pipe in some H2S gas, you got to lay it down and let it sit out for like a year, or it's totally unusable moving forward. So how drill string's a couple $100,000, so that's a big hit, and I think that's kind of something that operators have really worked towards, is figure out a way to plastic coat that pipe or figure out a way to combat that H2S. So,
wow, pretty. That's neat. I'll tell you, it's a great business, and my grandfather, I remember using the old chains and stuff and losing fingers. My grandfather used to sit underneath. He had a family to feed, so he would sit underneath the rig and wait for somebody to get hurt on the rig so he could go to work.
Oh, wow.
Man, it was like, no jobs. There's no jobs, but you stay on a rig long enough, and hopefully nobody ever got hurt. But if they did get hurt, he was ready to go to work because he had to obviously feed his family. So that's really different. Jordan, you got anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else before we move on?
I just have, of course, I always have my last question, but one question that I am really interested in hearing your perspective on is, where do you see the industry kind of shifting to within the next year to 5 years? I mean, we've seen a lot of different trajectories that the industry has kind of dabbled in a little bit with renewable energy, and the whole talk around transformation of energy usage and things like that, and how we get that energy from. But, Jay and I are like-minded. We don't think that oil and gas is really going anywhere for quite some time. But from your vantage point, what do you think is the biggest impact factor to the industry within the next year to 5 years?
That's a really good question. I think if you really look at it, Billy Bob has kind of a monologue in season 1 with this girl out by the windmills where he explains the difference between renewable and green energy and alternative energy. Alternative energy is a totally different perspective, and it's the idea that you put windmills out for energy, yet the windmills are not green. They aren't in any way green, and so they may be advertised that way, but it obviously takes hydrocarbons and more energy to build them than what they ever generate in their lifetime. So I think that we will find a way. If you look at the Permian Basin and how resilient it is, what we've done with horizontal drilling and what we've done as a civilization to keep up with our appetite for oil, we've gotten to where we're pretty efficient. Yet it is an oil-based infrastructure. Everything that we have now is reliant on it. So until that truly green energy is found, built out, scaled, and provided for people to use, there's no replacement. And in my opinion, that's 150-year project. So I think we're stuck with it. I think that it's really dangerous and it's tough and difficult, expensive to find and bring to market. And I think it's probably the most important thing outside of water that we have as a civilization. We got to have it. So that question that you've answered asked me is probably one of the important questions that we should think about today.
What do you think about your company? What do you think? Where do you guys see yourself in 5 or 10 years?
Well, I just hope to be a piece of the puzzle, like we talked about on the horizontal deal. If we could get a little bit of that, or the disposal wells, or just the vertical wells, I think that it's a niche market now. Not many people have vertical rigs. There's very few operating in the state of Texas. So, I don't think it's going to be a assembly line growth type thing where I just put rigs out. I hope to just refine our craft, be kind of a boutique operation, and cater to the customers that see the value of using a conventional rig and digging birds.
Is there like a cemetery for all the old rigs that have gone somewhere and just sitting somewhere?
There is, and it'd probably be the yards of all the contractors that put them out to begin with. Those rigs are just.
I can see them all in Abilene.
There's a lot in Abilene. Yeah, they end up going to the scrap iron yard eventually and getting cut up. But you're right, man, and we're dinosaurs, and it's a dying thing. So I think that's one thing that Landman did a pretty good job, was to just give America a glimpse of what that's like.
Yeah.
Because really nobody's brought it to the big screen the way they did. I mean, actually showing those hands, throwing chains, making a connection, and going up and down, and just seeing the dirty old rig. I offered to paint the rig. I thought we would be necessary, and they said no. We want it to look how it is originally.
Wow, authentic.
Yeah, wow. There it is. That's authentic as it gets, right there.
That's true. That's true. I loved it, man. I thought it was great. Good deal. But anyway, just talking about that, we were talking about oil and gas, and the demand for oil is continuing to go up, and we don't feel like there's a peak. People say something about peak oil demand, which means that oil demand peaks. And I feel like that's going out further every day. They talk about 2030, 35, 40. So I don't think in my lifetime we're going to see where oil demand goes down.
Right.
I think it's going to continue to go up, and I think it's going to continue to go up here in the United States and obviously around the world, which we're a very big part of that because we produce 13 million barrels a day in the United States. We need about 20 million barrels a day. And we need to find more efficient ways. We're sending oil overseas because our refineries can't handle all the heavy stuff that we have here. We produce so much lighter crude, and we need darker, thicker crude like Venezuela or Russia, Canada, and we just don't have it here. So it's really crazy, and we're going to see this business thrive. Year in and year out, it's going to be, I think the price over the last 5 years, 10, 15, 20. If you average it out, it's over $70 a barrel. We're going to see it continue to hit up there. Plus natural gas too. I mean, natural gas is something that man, I didn't see this coming. We were talking about 5 years ago or 10. Natural gas is going to zero. Everybody thinks that natural gas prices will go to zero, and the need for natural gas is going to go down. But no, it's not. It's not at all. It's at $5 right now, and it's going to continue to go up. But it dropped down into the less than $1 a few years ago, and now it's going to go back up. It has come up all the way to $5, and we're taking advantage of this. So I heard Brad Stevens last week talk at one of our Adam meetings. He's with Stevens, and I was asking him after his presentation for questioning. I said, hey, what are the best assets right now to build up and sell in the next 2, 3, 4 years? And he said natural gas. He said natural gas is going to do it. And so that's why we're in the two areas that we're in to build up natural gas assets, because we feel like that, public companies want to develop those and sell. So we're good. We're good there. So that's good. Well, let's go into the 5 questions we have, or the Jay Young's weekly 5. Okay. So Cole, are you with us on this?
I'm here.
The weekly 5. All right. So put up
Yes.
your boots. Here we go. So the word of the week this week is visionary. And the reason why I chose that was because Tom Hicks, Tom Hicks, great visionary in the United States, and lived in Dallas, and he did the first with Dr. Pepper 7-Up back in the 80s, made a bunch of people a lot of money. And then he started, bought the Rangers, he bought the Stars, he bought Resistol hats, he bought the arena. He had everything. He literally, if it was not standing still, he'd buy it, but he was a great visionary, and I love Tom, and we bought the Rangers back, a few years ago from him, unfortunately. But this is something about his character. Something about his character is, I was in a consortium to buy the Rangers with Billy Quinn and Ray Davis and Ken Hirsch and a bunch of other guys. And we bought the Rangers. And at that time, this is 2010, we'd gone up to New York, and we were sitting in New York, and we'd won a game. And no, right before the game. Right before the game, we're just sitting there, and 3 or 4 guys were going into the baseball game, and this reporter comes up and he goes, "Hey," he said, "who are you guys?" And somebody said, "Hey, yeah, we're the part of the ownership group of the Texas Rangers." And this guy turns to me and he goes, "Hey, well, I need to interview you." I said, "Look," I said, "I appreciate that." And I said, "Not that I don't have anything to say, but I tell you, the one guy that you really do want to go talk to is that guy right over there." And he goes, "Who's that?" And I said, "Now that's Tom Hicks." And he goes, "Who's Tom Hicks?" And I said, "Well, he just lost the Texas Rangers out of bankruptcy. We picked it up." But I said, he is the guy to talk to, because he's sitting here. He came to the game. I mean, he's such a huge fan of the Rangers. Here he is in New York City, in the Bronx, at a Texas Rangers baseball game. I thought, man, that guy is unbelievable. So I love Tom. I thought he was really good. I know his son, Mac, said one time, he said, my dad, he said, man, he loves being a visionary, and he buys things and drops them off to us to operate them. And he goes, he was the gas, and he said, I was the brake, because he just kept buying things and going, okay, hey, y'all figure this out. I'm going to find the way to buy it, and all that. So I can see a visionary, he sees the future, and it's like our field that we have, the 60,000 acres in the Bivens Ranch right now. I mean, I see that being an incredible asset for our partners. So I am very thankful for that. We can drill multiple wells, whether it be 20, 30, 40 wells, sell it off, or just continue drilling it because it's giving us great returns. That's going to be a great field, and I'm really excited about doing that. One guy that I remember, he said, he right before we got involved in it, he said, I've heard of that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And I'm like, I wonder why this guy's telling me not to do that. But anyway, found out he's just somebody that was jealous and couldn't do it himself. And we're having to raise a lot of money and give up a lot, to do this. It costs a lot of money to do, these kind of projects. But I was the visionary on that. I loved it because I thought, man, You know what? I can see, I can see what's going to happen in the future, or I hope that I can see what's going to happen in the future. And all the assets that we build up right now, you know, I'm trying to, I look at it and say, okay, guys, if we buy this, how do we turn this into $1 billion, $2 billion asset? Same thing with you and your company. I mean, it's like you need to think big and think, okay, well, how can we buy more rigs and put more people to work, and how can we get bigger? And that's kind of what my deal is. Jordan, do you have anything to say about visionary?
You know, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there whenever you were saying that it takes that leader to really have that visionary approach, to look at the landscape and see the strategic value of something that others might not be able to realize yet. And if you can have the strength to lead the group into that vision, right? Because it's not just enough to have the foresight of what could be, but to also have the capability to bring people in and then believe in that vision and then bring it to life. Yeah. You know, that's also a really important component of it. And that's where those goals are really in handy, and having a timeline and true deliverables that people can then invest in. And I think that then leads to company investment through the employees, right? And then you can see your vision come to life as a leader. But it really does take all of those components to really bring that visionary element to the leadership role to come to pass.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's like if Ford Motor Company or think of Musk. I mean, Elon Musk, an incredible visionary. Yes. For all the different companies he has, because you just don't walk up there and, you don't walk past Mount Everest and go, I think I'm going to climb that one of these days, or let's climb it today, or, whatever. It's like there's so much more to it that you have to do, and thinking about, okay, so if we do buy it, how do I buy it? I can't buy everything all the time, and finding people to believe in your vision and what's going on, which is great. So, Cole, anything for you?
I think that just referring back to your fields, what I was thinking about, you're playing opportunity to play both markets with oil and gas. You know, you've got it down there in the ground. You've got 60,000 acres, which I don't know how many wells you could drill, but it's probably half a lifetime's worth.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that's the prep work. That's the foundation. You know, you had to go out and take the initial risk to discover it or prove it up in some capacity. But now it's at a point where you may be seeing kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not saying it's all, roses from here moving forward, but it is definitely a heck of a project that I would think your investors are pretty proud of and love to be a part of. So
yeah, definitely are. That's right. And it takes geologists and somebody to find something like that, or find a field like that, and to be optimistic and think, oh yeah, here it is, and let's see here, and then you have the engineers that will do the numbers and go, I don't know, if it costs you $10 million to drill a well and you only get 100,000 barrels out of the ground, then that's not going to be very good, Or what if the price goes to 40? They're the Eeyore, I guess, of the Winnie the Pooh portion, or of Winnie the Pooh.
But the geologist, Tigger.
Yep, exactly. Tigger, and you got Eeyore, and then Landman. I don't know who Landman is. Not Billy Bob Thornton, but
I guess Pooh Bear.
Rabbit.
There you go. And he's the one that puts the land together and keeps all that together. So that's exactly right. All right, great. Well, the Bible verse of the week, I chose Proverbs 29:18, and the reason why is because I said, where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he. So the reason why I'm thinking about that is because I'm just thinking about, that you either grow or die. Right. In this industry, I've learned that you grow the business, and you've got to grow. Not that you can't sell, but like if you had 6 rigs and you want to go to 20 and sell, you're growing, and so you're thinking, okay, I got to think outside the box. I got to think about, all right, what does this look like with more rigs or more barrels or more wells, and how do I get 4 rigs? My goal is to get 4 rigs running by the end of this next year. How do we get 4 rigs running? And so I got to think about that whole that thing about how do you get 4 rigs running? Well, I got to find the land to be able to drill the wells, and before that, you got to find out it's got to be economic. Nobody's going to do it if you're drilling dry holes all the time. But you drill 4 wells or get 4 rigs running in 4 different areas, you have to find the way to do it. So it's just a visionary type person that does something like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. So what are we reading right now? Jordan, what are you reading right now?
It's called Principles, Life, and Work. It's by Ray, and I always mess up his last.
Ray Dalio.
Yes. So it's just like a system for decision making, and it just helps like we've talked about vision, right? It just helps leaders like think far beyond this moment. And I think it's a really helpful read if you are going into leadership, or if you are a leader and just looking for a little bit of growth, and like strategic outlook. That's a really good read.
Yeah, that's great. And I've got the one on my nightstand now. Thinking the fourth turning is here by Neil Howe. A big picture look at cycles and long-term trends, perfect for a visionary mindset. So, hey, there's going to be cycles, there's going to be trends, there's going to be all these things. But my great grandfather was in the business, and my grandfather and my dad. My dad was in it, not half his life, but less than that. But it's still. I think about the trends and thinking about the cycles and oil and gas prices and all that. It's going to happen, but how you overcome that. So I tell you what, this is on my I want to watch the show Air. I have not seen the Air. That's the story of how Nike placed a visionary bet on Michael Jordan. I haven't seen it.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it, but I hear it's unbelievable. I haven't even watched the 3rd episode of Landman yet. But anyway, you have watched it?
No, it's great. It's great. It's a great.
Well, don't give it away, but tell me something about it. What did you like best about it?
I liked, we've talked a lot about like the art of the deal, and I liked how protective his mother was, and the way that they went about signing him, and the faith that they had in each other, and the acting. I think there's one person, and it's been a while since I've watched the movie, but there was one person that felt a little cheesy in his role. I think it was the CEO of Nike, but overall, like, it was a wonderfully told story, and it, like, talking about having vision and having faith in your team and like pushing forward through the hard moments. It's a good watch.
Wow. Well, Cooper Flagg just turned down a $100 million Nike deal, and he took a $30 million Reebok deal, I think. But it was paid all up front, where Nike's was going to be paid over a 10-year period.
Goes over time.
But I'm sure there's other things to it as well. So that's such big money.
Sometimes it's really about like the brand, and is it in alignment with your brand? I mean, we've talked a lot about brand story and what culture are you crafting around your brand story? Who is that community that you're sharing that conversation with? And is all of that in alignment? And if the brand that's approaching you is not in that authenticity vein of your brand, it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
And so maybe that has something to do with it.
If you're getting blisters while you're wearing the shoes or something, it's like, man, I got these blisters the size of quarters.
Don't want that.
Yeah, you don't want that at all.
Don't want that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I've been watching Limitless by Chris Hemsworth, not to be confused with Limitless with Bradley Cooper. Which is also a really good movie. But this one's on Disney Plus, and it's just kind of like, just fits again in with that visionary theme, exploring what's possible beyond limitations. Like, let's explore the world while we're here, and what does that look like? And Chris Hemsworth, he's nice to look at too. So that's a little nice.
Visionary theme. Yeah, good. That's awesome. And the podcast, I don't think I've ever mentioned this before on the show, but Tim Ferriss, he's really great. He's very popular, business-like, leadership roles and visionary. He's really good at all the things, and he talks about investments, operators. I mean, all the different licenses. So I recommend big time the Tim Ferriss Show, not to be construed with the Jay Young Show, but it's called the Tim Ferriss Show. One of these days, we may get as many followers as he does. He's unbelievable.
Well, so, remember vision. We have the vision, and we're making.
I can see it right now. I can see that, like Johnny Carson. You know,
yeah, there you go.
You know who Johnny Carson. You know who Johnny Carson is, do you? Have you ever heard Johnny Carson? No. Okay. Anyway, he used to have this. I forget what he did, but he'd put the answer on his forehead, and he would think. Anyway. Look that up.
Well, we can do that, Jay. We can make that have a comeback. We can do it. I believe in this. Yes.
I love that.
So what podcast am I listening to? Just hold your hand to your forehead really quickly, and then we'll no, not just kidding.
I'm gonna have to show you that. You go ahead. I'm going to look this up on YouTube.
Yeah,
you go ahead. What are you listening to? What's your podcast?
How I Built This by Guy Raz. Just inspiring stories of visionary entrepreneurs. I love entrepreneurship. And so, again, speaking of vision, it's just entrepreneurs who saw something before other people did. It's perfect for if you're trying to, round out growth and risk taking and vision as a leader.
Yeah. Okay.
Did I give you enough time? Did you find it on YouTube?
I haven't found one yet.
I can keep going.
He's a magic cartridge. No, I think we're out of time. Anyway, so we'll study that one, and we'll do something back next time on the Johnny Carson. He was there when I was growing up, Johnny Carson, which was back in the 60s and 70s when he was popular. So that was way before Jordan was thought of. So
I love the style, though. I'm here for the 1960s style. So
I love it.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, good. Well, anyway, Cole Green, thank you very much for coming in today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming in and answering all our Landman questions and finding out more about you and finding out about a drilling rig. And let me ask this one last question. Sorry, but is it because we were trying to buy a rig at that time, and this guy told me, he said, it's going to cost you $1 million to buy a rig. This is back in the 90s, and he said, but if you want people to work on it, if you want a full crew, it's like $2 or $3 million. Is that true? If you were looking at a rig today,
I would imagine so, because he's talking about a real rig that's just stacked compared to a rig that's working in the field.
Yeah, and
it's all about working in the field. The rig itself is just a liability sitting in the yard, and when it's out in the field, it's profitable most likely, and got crews associated with it. So those numbers are probably a little different, nowadays, but. You just got to find the right deal. If you can find a rig for pennies on the dollar and you have a crew available, then, that's your win-win. But I would think that you're potentially buying a drilling company or, the personnel associated with said rig.
Yeah. But you're a young guy, though. I mean, I can see you guys lifting up, getting 10 or 15. Hold on. Let me get my Johnny Carson card up here. No. But just, do you think there's going to be, in a 5 in 3 years, 5 years, you think you're going to have more rigs? More rigs or less rigs in 3 to 5 years?
I potentially, I hope we have more rigs. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it just comes where my position on it is the right kind of work. Yeah. You got to get into these year-long or 2-year-long drilling deals programs, kind of such as the same direction you're going with. But if you can get the right operators to get in with you and find people that need the rig, the chance of putting more rigs out becomes a reality.
It's going to cost me a lot less. If I can sign a year contract or 2-year contract or something, you give it to me for almost nothing, wouldn't you?
Well, I'd give it to you for cheaper than I would on a well-by-well basis, yes. It would be nice.
We're going to negotiate a great deal here. We got to get a rig out there in Bivens Ranch. We need 1 or 2, but they're going to take a bigger rig than he has right now. But also, in the mid-continent, that's a lot less footage. 6,500 foot verticals and maybe a mile-long lateral, so a lot less money there. So maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, that's a lot more up our wheelhouse right there.
Yeah, there you go, wheelhouse, sweet spot. There you go. Hey, everybody, thank you very much for coming in today. We're excited about having Cole Green. We like our five, the Jace 5. What do you call it, Jace? The Jace Weekly 5. We appreciate that. I know. I'm sorry, everybody's going, hey, what's going on? Okay, thank you very much, Jordan. We'll see you back here next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.